And I know as soon as I say this, it's going to cause a lot of triggers. I've seen that with a lot of law firms. It doesn't work. It's not sustainable. If you want to grow and if you want to avoid burnout in the future, it is something that you have to pull the band-aid sooner than later. And when I did that, I saw that my number of clients that would sign up kind of tripled just by that action. Signing up clients yourself, that I see as a big, not just a time waster, but actually you're not being efficient and you're losing out on a lot of value if you're still signing up clients yourself. And I know as soon as I say this, it's going to cause a lot of triggers and people are like, what are you talking about? And then maybe for some people, but not for me because I do this type of law. Maybe not for you because maybe not for me because of this reason, all these different reasons, but I've heard it all. I've seen it all. And the gist of it is if you want to grow and if you want to avoid burnout in the future, it is something that really you have to pull the band-aid sooner than later and really optimize your time by not being the person who signs up the clients for your law firm. Doesn't matter what stage you're at. Obviously, in the first couple of years that you start your law firm, you have to go through the motions. You have to understand your clients. Sure. But after the first couple of years, after first year or two, I would say we need to look for other ways, which I'll be sharing with you how to do that. But let's talk about the why, Neil, right? Why do we not want to sign up clients yourself? Well, let me share with you a story. When I started out, I was setting up clients myself. And I realized that my time wasn't being leveraged because while I was on a phone call or on Zoom with my prospects, I was getting 2 or 3 emails coming in during that time at the same time. And I was getting other calls that I wasn't able to handle. And it took me some time to realize, I'm like, wait a minute, every time that I'm taking on a call, I'm missing out on 2 or 3 other opportunities. And it was also at the same time that I learned about scalable. And I realized my time is not being scaled right now. It's a one-to-one interaction, one input for one output, 1 hour of my time for one client. What if instead I could relay this communication via email so I could answer 3-4 people within 5-10 minutes and be able to set up a lot higher quantity of clients. So I changed my direction. I basically removed my phone number off my website, which at the time was pretty scary. And I directed people through my funnels and through email for me to sign up clients. And when I did that, I saw that my number of clients that would sign up tripled just by that action. And then at that time, also started looking into how can I create funnels so I could get bookings for my virtual intakers. And when I did that, and I'll be sharing with you what I do now, that's when my time was really scaled and I was able to grow from there.
Yeah, and I also think, Sam, as attorneys, there is an ethical issue here as well. Because I think, like, for me personally, I've found that I'm good at sales. And that's how come my practice was successful to start with in the beginning. But there is a tendency on attorneys' parts, particularly in these initial consultations, to be trying to solve the client's problem in the consultation as a demonstration of our ability to further the relationship and maybe land that prospect as a client. You have to be careful there because you want to avoid giving legal advice until you've crossed all your T's and dotted all your I's and had that retainer agreement in hand. So the idea that it has to be a lawyer who does that initial consultation because you're going to have to address legal questions, that's looking at it from the wrong end of the spectrum because you don't want to be giving the solution. You can talk about how you might be able to fix a problem or how you might be able to address the problem. But you don't want to be talking about fact-specific answers to questions that are broader than they should be, given that there's no retainer agreement in place. So that's why if you have an intake specialist who can handle and address and funnel those prospects to the point of getting them under a retainer agreement, then you can devote your time to handling their legal issues, or somebody on your staff can. So it's a way of also ensuring that you don't cross over that line during the initial consultations if you turn that over to somebody else.
Totally. So let's talk about what would be the ideal way to go about it, or how do we do it? So it comes down to these 4 words: 100% dedicated virtual intakers. 100% dedicated virtual intakers, not 70%, not 30%. 100% dedicated virtual intakers. That means you cannot just use somebody on your team who happens to be one of the best people on your team or your legal secretary to come set up clients for you. You've seen that. I've seen that with a lot of law firms. It doesn't work. It's not sustainable. They're busy with other stuff. They don't have time to be able to follow up. So you need to make sure that that person, whoever's in charge of setting up clients, is 100% dedicated. The other aspect is virtual. Ideally, if you can find somebody in-house that you can manage internally, great. But usually, in our experience, it's very hard to find good staff who lives within a 10, 15-mile radius of your law firm, who's also good at sales, who's also good at follow-up, who's very resilient and persistent to be able to work long-term as a law firm intaker. So we look to hiring people from overseas who are trained in sales, who are good at qualifying our leads, qualifying our prospects to make sure that we can help them. And then once we qualify them, then we send them up. And then that's when the lawyer can come in, provide advice on all that stuff. So that's how we think about it. The intakers qualify our leads. That's their entire job. And then once we send them up, once they're your clients, then yes, at that point, then the lawyer could come in with the strategy and everything else on the back end.
And you do have to have systems in place. You can't just turn somebody loose and say, okay, you're responsible for signing up prospects that come through the door. You need to have systems in place and tools. And so, for instance, in my situation, I use Clio Grow to manage our prospective clients. It integrates nicely with Clio Manage. And so our intake specialist is the one who is totally responsible for all aspects of working in Clio Grow. So there's lots of automation that's available in that platform and makes things really efficient on their end and provides traceability and accountability all along the way. And as I said, it integrates nicely with Clio Manage. So you have to have the tools and the processes in place as well.
Yeah. And the way that I think of what you're sharing about the tools and processes is I think of it as TGI. TGI stands for tracking, goals, and incentives. So tracking comes down to essentially tracking their key metrics. How many calls are they making on a daily basis, weekly basis? How many clients are they signing up on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? So pretty much all the tracking. We use CallRail to keep track of that. And we use HubSpot to keep track of all that in that realm. Second is goals. Every single intaker has a very clear goal, usually on a monthly basis, how many clients that is expected. And also on the back end, also we look to incentivize our intakers. It's done in a very particular way that is ethical to be able to incentivize our intakers to set up clients. All this stuff, I'm giving very high level stuff. Obviously, each of these needs to be broken down, show you how our Google Sheets, how we do it, how we will work through the S parts. All that stuff has been sorted out, but it does work. And now we have over 80 intakers who work for my law firms. And it's really based on these three principles of tracking, goals, and incentives.
Yeah.